room nurses and staff, showing when they practice this simple process of these Caritas processes with this loving kindness, some of the work that Joseph's doing. But doing this in an emergency room, they actually had a perception of shifts of time perception. They actually felt they had more time after having this simple practice. Things like that, having more alignment with the system, less desire to leave the system and so forth. So all of this is part of the electromagnetic field of the heart and our finding that we have to be conscious and intentional about these different Caritas ways of being in our world. And so this brings us to these simple ways that we manifest this in a caring moment. So the heart of my theory of where you manifest this theory and practice is through the caring moment. So what happens in that moment is what happens and affects the next moment and the next moment and the next moment. So by being conscious and intentional about how we enter into our space, in this slide you see that the nurse and the patient come in to a present moment with their own background, their own field. But when they come together in that third incident there, it's the nurse's consciousness and intentionality and authentic presence that's going to affect that whole field. And if a patient is depressed or angry, the nurse's higher vibration field will help to modulate that. So the nurse in this instance almost becomes the environment. So these are powerful things to pay attention to, and this is empirical research that grounds this in terms of these classic understanding that patients actually describe some nurses as making them feel worse. It's been referred to as bioacidic. It's been referred to in some of the literature presented here. Other nurses were described by patients as cold and treating them as a nuisance, as biostatic, biopassive, as apathetic, detached. We know this happens. The bioactive is the more classic nurse, but the highest level of caring that I'm talking about is biogenic. That's the transpersonal. Transpersonal also conveys that you're moving beyond the ego and just the head control model alone, that you're actually being in right relation and connecting human to human in that moment, and it's life-giving and life-receiving for each moment, for each person. And all of us in this room have had caring moments. And if you were to do some research by just recording your caring moments or doing journals or narratives of your caring moments, of what you're already doing and experiencing, I would suspect you could find empirical evidence of all the Caritas processes in your own stories, in your own journals. So think about that as a research model. So the other part of this, underneath the science of caring, is, again, Levinas's work. He talks about the ethics of face. He uses the metaphor of face. Another Danish philosopher, Logstrup, uses the metaphor of hands. Levinas says, when you look into the face of another human being, you're looking into the mystery and the infinity of the human soul. And when you look into the mystery and the infinity of a human soul and the other, it mirrors back the infinity of ours. He goes on to say, the only way we can sustain humanity at this point in time in human history is through the face-to-face connection. Now, isn't that a paradox in terms of the nature of your program? However, look what you've done. You've created the finest of both. Because the other part of the theory of caring and science model is that consciousness transcends time and space and physicality. So you can actually convey caring energetically across time and space and physicality, which you are doing here in this curriculum. And you're experiencing it, or not, depending on the persons involved. So, you know, it's an invitation. It's like, okay, these are options. And the other thing that Logstrup reminds us of, he says that the ethics of hands, that we literally and metaphorically hold another person's life in our hands. And we are the source for sustaining their humanity or not. So this goes back to what song does your heart sing? And how do we bring this into the caring science as a theory? So very quickly, I'm not going to do a lot with this because you already know it, and I'm going to just highlight. If you don't know my theory, these are the things that I want you to know. And I'm not going to say them, I'm going to just read them. The first one's the foundation for caring science. The second one is the theory, the language. The third is where it happens, is where it lives, is in the moment. The fourth one has to do with your consciousness and your evolution to affect that moment. And the last one is we get to reframe all the things that you're doing You're still going to be doing those nurse practitioner skills, however, or task procedures. But I would hope now, if you have this consciousness and work toward this, you will reframe all those things that you're doing into now offering your skills and tasks as a caring and healing modality.